Have you ever felt like you were discarded, like trash? That's exactly how I felt at 17 years old, kicked out of my parents' house late at night with nothing but a trash bag filled with a few worn-out clothes. All of it because my older brother made a terrible mistake driving drunk, and instead of facing the truth, my parents blamed me, the scapegoat of the family. For years, I kept asking myself, why me? Why did they choose to break me? Their silence echoed louder than any apology could. And now, out of nowhere, they're asking to move into the small home I fought so hard to build with my own two hands. The flood of emotions I feel, it's overwhelming. Before we dive into this story, please drop a comment below telling us which city you're watching from. Enjoy the video. Emotional storytelling. Over the next 30 minutes, I want to take you through my painful yet determined journey. From cold nights on the streets with nowhere to turn, to tense reunions with the people I once called family, and finally, the choice I had to make when the past came knocking at my door again. This isn't just my story. It's the voice of anyone who's been hurt and misunderstood, but still found the courage to stand up and define their own worth. Have you ever been betrayed by those closest to you? What would you do if they came back asking for help? Join me as we explore these hard questions together. Share your thoughts down below, I want to hear from you. From the very beginning, my childhood was marked not by warmth or security, but by an invisible yet unrelenting pressure, a pressure that shaped every moment of my young life. It wasn't just the normal ups and downs of family life, it was a clear divide etched into every interaction. My older brother, Jake, was the golden child, always perfect in my parents' eyes, their pride and joy. And I was the shadow. The one who could do no right, the scapegoat for every mistake or misstep around the house. I remember vividly how the smallest things became battles I had no chance of winning. If Jake got in trouble at school, no matter how unrelated I was, somehow it was my fault for distracting him. Broken dishes, lost keys, a bad grade, they all traced back to me as if I was the cause of chaos in our home. Their words were sharp, slicing through my confidence. Why can't you be more like your brother? You're always the problem. I carried those words like scars, invisible but deeply painful. The emotional toll was immense. I was no longer just a child, I was a living, breathing target of blame and neglect. The favoritism wasn't just unfair, it was toxic. I learned early on to keep my head down, to avoid drawing attention, and to hide my true self. I found refuge away from home, spending countless hours at friends' houses, pretending the world outside was kinder than the one inside my own walls. Then there were the whispers from relatives and neighbors, subtle but cruel reminders that I was the other child, the one who didn't belong to the family narrative. Cousins would ask about Jake's achievements but never mine. Even my aunt, who sometimes called to check in, tread carefully around the unspoken family truth. Inside, I wrestled with so many conflicting emotions, anger at being unfairly blamed, loneliness from being isolated, and a deep yearning to be seen, not as a failure, but as someone worthy of love and respect. There were nights I cried silently in my room, feeling invisible and abandoned, wondering if my parents even remembered I existed beyond the blame they heaped on me. But even in that darkness, I clung to a fragile hope. A hope that one day, I would break free from this toxic cycle. That someday, I would build a life on my own terms, away from their judgments and unfair expectations. Little did I know, that hope would soon be tested in the most brutal way imaginable. And that leads us to the pivotal night that changed everything, the night I was forced out with nothing but a trash bag and a shattered heart. But that story, the darkest night of my youth, is not just about loss. It's where the journey of survival, resilience, and eventual reconciliation begins. That night still haunts me, the night my parents decided to erase me from their lives with cold, brutal finality. I was only 17, just a few months away from finishing high school, full of dreams and hopes that now seemed shattered. I never imagined that the family who was supposed to protect me could turn their backs so completely. It started with my father's voice, angry, sharp, and accusing as he stormed into my room. His words burned through the dim light, blaming me for everything. The accident, the chaos, Jake's pain. Pack your things. You're not welcome here anymore. I couldn't believe I was hearing this. How could they blame me for Jake's reckless choice to drive drunk? For his crash? My mother stood silently by the door, tears staining her cheeks but no words to stop him. Her silence felt like betrayal as sharp as his shouts. I looked at her, pleading silently for her to defend me, but all I saw was resignation, and perhaps, regret too heavy to speak. They handed me a trash bag, not a suitcase or a box, just a plastic bag to hold the few belongings I could gather in minutes. Clothes, books, a photo or two, a lifetime of memory crammed into something meant for garbage. My hands trembled, my heart shattered, the room spinning. I was losing everything in an instant, my home, my family, my sense of safety. Stepping outside into the cold night air, the world felt enormous and hostile. The streetlights cast long shadows, but I had nowhere to go but forward, alone. I remember the crunch of gravel under my feet, the cold biting through my thin jacket, and the unbearable weight of abandonment pressing down on me. The house door slammed behind me like a judge's gavel sealing my fate. I wandered for miles, the city dark and uncaring. Every step was heavy with fear and confusion. How could the people who were supposed to love me so completely cast me away? I finally reached my friend Mia's house. Her parents welcomed me inside with wide eyes and gentle hands, their kindness a fragile lifeline in my storm. But even in that refuge, I couldn't shake the shame and the pain. Why was I the scapegoat? Why did the accident make me the family's enemy? These thoughts tore at me night after night. Over the following weeks, I navigated a maze of emotions. Grief for the family I lost, anger at their cruelty, and a stubborn flicker of hope that I could build a life worth more than their rejection. Friends became my new family, and their support taught me resilience, even if the scars inside ran deep. It was during these painful nights that I learned a harsh truth about human nature: the ones we expect to protect us sometimes hurt us the most. But I forced myself to believe that my story was not over, that the darkest night was only the beginning of my fight to reclaim my life. This moment of exile, so vivid and raw, set the stage for a journey of survival and growth. It's a chapter of betrayal that led me to discover my own strength, and it's just the beginning. After that night, the night I was cast out like garbage, my world crumbled into pieces. I was just 17, barely a child, thrust into an adult struggle without a safety net. But in the depths of that despair, something in me ignited, a fierce determination not to let their rejection define me. The first weeks were the hardest. I stayed with Mia and her family, grateful beyond words. Her parents, strangers who became my unexpected refuge, opened their doors and hearts to me. Mia was a lifeline, a constant reminder that kindness still existed in this cold world. But even surrounded by their care, I felt the sting of being uprooted. The ache of losing my childhood home, my parents, my sense of belonging. School became both a refuge and a battlefield. I threw myself into studying, trying to prove I mattered, not to them, but to myself. Nights were spent poring over textbooks at Mia's kitchen table, the glow of the desk lamp my only companion. Exhausted but driven, I balanced part-time jobs, waiting tables, tutoring younger kids, all to keep a roof over my head and enough money to chase dreams I barely dared whisper aloud. There were moments I wanted to give up. The loneliness was suffocating. The questions haunted me: why did they choose to discard me? Was I really the failure they painted me as? Yet, each time despair threatened to swallow me, I found strength in small victories: a good grade, a shift covered to pay rent, a friend's reassuring smile. They were reminders that my worth couldn't be stolen by lies or blame. Within this crucible, I grew sharper, not just in mind but in spirit. I learned to advocate for myself, to set boundaries, and to dream beyond the limits others set for me. It was a painful self-discovery, marked by nights of tears and days of quiet resolve. My story intertwined with characters who shaped my resilience. Mia's parents never treated me like an outsider, their acceptance was healing. A high school counselor, Mrs. Thompson, saw past my circumstances and offered guidance, urging me to consider community college as a stepping stone. Even fleeting connections, a coworker who offered words of encouragement, a professor who believed in me, became pillars supporting my ascent. But perhaps most crucial was the inner battle, the tug-of-war between hurt and hope. I fought jealousy and bitterness toward Jake, whose golden child status had stolen my family's love. I wrestled with the raw pain of abandonment while nurturing the fragile seed of forgiveness, not for them, but for my own peace. Years passed in this relentless cycle of struggle and growth. I graduated community college, then earned my bachelor's degree, a testament to what can be forged from pain and perseverance. Finally, I was able to buy a small house, a sanctuary that was mine and mine alone, built from sweat and sacrifice. Yet, the shadow of my past lingered. Every brick laid was a reminder of the family I lost and the scars I carried. It was clear. My journey was not just about survival but reclaiming identity and dignity. And then, unexpectedly, the past came knocking again, with my parents reaching out, asking for a place to stay. The emotional noise was overwhelming, the crossroads daunting. The day I agreed to meet my parents was one of the most emotionally charged moments of my life, a mix of anxiety, guarded hope, and a cold suspicion that this encounter might shatter me all over again. It had been almost 8 years since I last saw them, 8 years marked by silence, absence, and wounds that had never fully healed. We chose a local diner, neutral ground, somewhere I could control the space and keep my walls up. Walking in, I saw them sitting there, my father, older, wearier, his usual stern demeanor softened by time, my mother, her face drawn with nervousness and what I hoped might be genuine remorse. The tension was thick, practically physical. At first, there was silence. Awkward and heavy. I took a seat, heart hammering, searching their eyes for a flicker of the love I once longed for. My voice broke it, soft but steady. "So, you said you needed my help. Let's talk." That's when they began. Their story unfolded. My father had been laid off a year ago, my mother working part-time but struggling to keep things afloat. My brother Jake, after losing his own job, had come back home, and now the cramped apartment was bursting at the seams, financial ruin looming. They were desperate, asking if there was any chance I could let them move in temporarily. Listening to them, I felt a tornado of feelings swirl inside me, anger, disbelief, pain, empathy, all tangled beyond unraveling. Yet, through it all, the silence about the past was deafening. Not a single genuine apology came without prompting. I forced myself to ask what I needed to hear. Do you regret how you treated me? Do you really understand what it was like to be kicked out that night? My mother's voice trembled as tears welled up. We made mistakes. We were under a lot of stress. But it was vague, like a fog covering a wound, not healing it. Her words felt hollow, and anger rose again inside me. Pushing harder, I demanded honesty, wanting to hear why I was the scapegoat. Their explanation came hesitantly. My brother was fragile after the accident, their fear blinded them. They thought blaming me would somehow protect Jake, help him cope. Part of me wanted to scream, to reject this excuse for cruelty. Yet, beneath the frustration, a flicker of understanding burned. Their defense was weak, but the pain in their eyes was real. They were flawed people, broken by fear, lashing out at the wrong person. At moments, my father's gaze dropped, his voice defensive. We can't change the past. We regret it. What more do you want? More? I wanted the truth. The full truth. But also, I wanted their willingness to face the pain they caused me, to acknowledge the years of silence, the trauma, the loneliness. My mother's tears came freely now, and for the first time, she said, "I'm proud of the person you've become." Those words hit me harder than any blame ever did. A tiny crack in the wall I'd built over years. Yet, despite their apologies, the weight of years could not be lifted in one conversation. I told them I needed time. Not just to forgive, but to process everything. I set boundaries. If they came to live with me, it would be temporary, with respect for my rules and a commitment to rebuilding trust. The meeting ended with an uneasy truce. I left the diner feeling drained, unresolved, but strangely lighter. For the first time, the past was out in the open. The hardest part, deciding what to do next, was still ahead. As I walked away, I knew there were more conversations to come. And the next step was reaching out to Jake, my brother, the silent witness and sometimes victim in this fractured family story. When my parents and Jake finally moved into my home, I thought it might be a fresh start, a chance to rewrite our broken family story. But the reality quickly settled in like a cold shadow, darker and more confusing than I'd ever imagined. The walls that once held my sanctuary trembled under the weight of old wounds and new frustrations. At first, everyone wore their best behavior like a fragile mask. We shared polite dinners, exchanged tentative smiles, even talked about trivial things to dodge the emotional landmines beneath the surface. But beneath the calm, the storm was gathering. Almost immediately, small cracks appeared. My mom began rearranging my kitchen cabinets, a place deeply personal to me, declaring she wanted to make things more efficient. But her help felt like an invasion, erasing my careful order, my little routines that gave me peace. When I gently asked her to stop, the defensiveness crept in like a rising tide. "I'm just trying to help," she said, voice sharp yet vulnerable. Jake was another challenge. Years of spoiled favoritism hadn't taught him responsibility. Dirty dishes piled up, scattered clothes and shoes lay abandoned, and I found myself silently cleaning up after him to avoid confrontation. Every reminder from me about responsibilities was met with a half-hearted apology and a fleeting effort, quickly fading back into old habits. I questioned if he even understood what respect meant in my home. The job search, a crucial part of their agreement, unfolded with frustrating slowness. Dad claimed he was applying to jobs, sometimes even reminding me of interviews, but most mornings he struggled to get out of bed. Jake's days blurred into video games and naps. Depression might explain their lethargy, but that didn't ease the sting of feeling used, taken for granted. I wanted so badly to help, but my patience was thinning. One day, I overheard a conversation that shattered the fragile truce. My dad's voice, low and bitter, "We've just got to deal with it for now. I can't stand living under her rules." His words hit me like a punch. The man who once slammed the door behind me was now complaining about the boundaries I set in my own house. The very rules that protect my sanity. My mother hushed him quickly, but the damage was done. That moment crystallized everything. They weren't here to heal or rebuild family ties, they were here because they had nowhere else to go. And beneath their gratitude hid a resentment that seethed quietly, slowly poisoning what little peace remained. Inside, a hurricane raged. I was torn, wanting connection, craving closure, but also needing to protect my fragile well-being. The memories of abandonment clashed with the reality of coexistence, each day testing the limits of my endurance. I found myself on edge constantly, juggling the role of caretaker, mediator, and disciplinarian. My own lived trauma echoed in every sloppy dawn, every ignored rule, every silent complaint I overheard. The question gnawed at me: how much could I give before I lost myself completely? Where was the line between kindness and self-preservation? The days stretched into a tense balance of navigating old pain while managing new conflicts. I wanted to believe this experiment could work, that maybe, just maybe, we could create something new. But the truth whispered another story, one of fractured trust and fragile hope. I knew a reckoning was approaching, and when it came, I would have to stand firm, to claim my space and demand respect, not just for my home, but for my heart. The conversation that night was the breaking point, a storm of emotions finally unleashed after weeks of silence and simmering tension. I laid everything bare, the exhaustion of feeling disrespected, the weight of being taken for granted in my own home, and the deep wounds left by years of neglect and betrayal. There was no holding back anymore. My parents sat in silence at first, my mom's tears slowly falling, my dad's face tight with regret. Even Jake, quiet as always, nodded in acknowledgement. For the first time, the walls we'd all built around ourselves began to crack, exposing the raw, fragile humanity beneath. They apologized, more earnestly than I'd heard before, admitting how wrong they were, not just in what they did, but in how they'd handled everything afterward. My dad's voice broke as he explained how fear and desperation had clouded their judgment, how they'd tried and failed to protect Jake, but at the wrong cost. My mom confessed that their silence over the years was born from shame and not knowing how to face me. I listened, feeling a painful mix of anger, sorrow, and something I hadn't dared to hope for, understanding. This wasn't erasing what happened, but it was a beginning. A small window into their remorse and a chance for me to reclaim my voice. But I also knew this, living together was not sustainable. The damage ran too deep, the trust too fragile. So, with a heavy heart, I told them it was time to find their own way again. Not out of cruelty, but out of self-respect and necessity. I offered help. A hand to find a place to stay, a financial bridge to ease their transition, because despite everything, a part of me still cared. As they packed their things, the house felt heavier and lighter all at once. The hugs goodbye were bittersweet, a complex weave of apology, gratitude, and unspoken pain. My mother's sobs echoed in my ears, while my father's hesitant handshake conveyed a silent plea for forgiveness that words couldn't capture. Jake's quiet promises to keep in touch felt like fragile threads being woven back into some semblance of family. When the door closed behind them, an overwhelming silence filled the space, a silence that was both an ending and a new beginning. In the days that followed, I grappled with a flood of emotions, relief that peace was restored, grief for the family I'd lost and partially reclaimed, and a cautious optimism for what lay ahead. I understood now that healing isn't linear. It's messy, difficult, and often ambiguous. I spent quiet moments reflecting on the journey, from the dark nights of abandonment to this tentative step toward forgiveness and self-preservation. I realized that letting go doesn't mean forgetting or excusing, it means setting boundaries that protect your heart while allowing room for growth. Characters who once seemed distant took on new dimensions in my mind. Mia's family's kindness echoed the support I still sought. Mrs. Thompson's encouragement reminded me of the power of empathy. Even Jake's apology, imperfect as it was, symbolized a fragile hope for reconciliation. This chapter closed with a powerful lesson: family isn't just about blood, but about respect, honesty, and the courage to face hard truths. My story had transformed from one of rejection and pain to one of strength and renewal. As I look to the future, I hold on to that hope. Hope that I can build a life defined not by past wounds but by the resilience to rise above them. This is more than a story of survival, it's a testament to the human spirit's capacity to heal, forgive, and start anew. Thank you for walking this path with me. If this story touches something within you, share your thoughts, your own battles, your own journeys. Because sometimes, in telling our stories, we find the strength to keep moving forward. If you found this story meaningful or it touched you in any way, please take a moment to like and share this video. Your support truly helps this channel reach more people who might need to hear stories like this. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next part of the journey. Most importantly, I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your own experiences, or any advice you have. Your feedback helps this channel grow and become even better. Thank you so much for being here and for being part of this community. Together, we can create a space of healing, truth, and strength.